This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore! Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Week in Review. It is Sunday, June 4th, 2023, as we are now in Money in the Bank mode, and that will take place on July 1st in London. So qualifiers started this week. As you guys heard on the Raw review, I attended Raw this past week, and we will have a live correspondent with us this coming Tuesday night who also attended Monday Night Raw, and we'll be introducing that individual to you Tuesday night. Tomorrow night will be Anthony DeMarco and myself as we do a very special 1-hour review of Roman Reigns' 1,000-day reign, focusing primarily on his reign, what's coming up next, and as always, a lot of sidebar conversations that take place, but I think it'll be a fun conversation tomorrow night on the current state of WWE in a special 1,000-day episode. So a lot to talk about there. If it sounds like I have a cold, I do. So if you're wondering if I just have suddenly a deep, sexy voice, nope. That's just the cold. So anyway, all right, let's move on. Things are getting weird already, and we just started the show. If you guys want to follow us on every platform you can, I'd really appreciate that. If you want to give us a 5-star rating, I'd really appreciate that even more. And if you want to support us in the best way, you can go ad-free at patreon.com/WWE podcast. And actually, I'd like to welcome some new patrons who have joined us on patreon.com. And those individuals are David Gerwicks, Nathan Johnson, and Domenico Antonio. Dom, Nathan, and David, welcome to the family, my friends. We have a lot in store for you as you peruse your ad-free experience. I think you'll want to stick around because we've got a lot of cool stuff coming. More video that's going to be my focus for the second half of this year. So stay tuned. And if you want to also support us at wwepodcast.com, you can do that as well and go ad-free there or pick up your merch. I know a few of you have done it already. wwepodcastshop.com. All right, let's do it. Let's roll into this week of WWE. Overall, it was a weird week. And I don't know if that is a good or bad thing. We'll find out as this episode unfolds. You guys already heard my Raw review at length in the in-person review of that show. SmackDown this past week, you know, our SmackDown team did a great job covering it. But I don't know. I don't know if I really loved it. Now, don't get me wrong. The Jimmy Uso segment with Roman Reigns, I really enjoyed that. We'll get to that. Monday Night qualifiers, you know, more often than not have been really good matches. I just can't shake the feeling that Vince McMahon has more of a say in the product than we would like to admit. And I'm not trying to start rumors. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer on it. I just feel like, you guys remember that feeling when Triple H took over mid last year when Vince McMahon was shamed into retirement. He was forced into retirement, didn't want to go, kicking and screaming right out the door with the whole cover up and paying off women that he was having an affair with, all that, right? Well, that feeling when Triple H was really in charge and Vince was as gone as he could be, it had a different feel. It had a different feel from a production standpoint. It had a different feel from a presentation standpoint. Of course, he brought a lot of people back. Not all of them have worked out. In fact, many of them haven't. But that feeling that anything could happen, that feeling that comedy wasn't the main focus of the show, the feeling of realism, that seems to have waned. And that's been a trend over the last several months. And Does it coincide nicely with Vince McMahon coming back to the board of directors and being involved with the Endeavor sale? It's hard to deny. It's hard to deny it, and it's hard to ignore the coincidence of it. Now, am I involved in WWE? Of course not. Do I have any inside information? No, I have the same information you do, but sometimes using your brain and putting two and two together is also a very powerful tool. And it feels like, especially with this episode of SmackDown, and with the last several Raws, with the reports coming in that Vince has some say in the product and he's rewriting things and all that, again, while we can't confirm, the results on TV sometimes speak for themselves. Now, you may be saying, well, Matt, what are you talking about? You're speaking so broadly. What the hell are you talking about? Well, take the Grayson Waller effect for example. That show, which I have no issue with, that existed on NXT, I believe, before it even came to the WWE's quote-unquote main roster of SmackDown. And it's designed primarily to be kind of a heel comedy segment. Asuka shows up on the show. She's the guest in that show. And she ends up having a conversation with Grayson, who just is, of course, playing the heel bit and talking about how, are you thinking about Money in the Bank and who could win it? And that even though one of the women will win that briefcase, that nobody will be ready for Asuka regardless of who wins, right? Which is really the only thing that Asuka ever has to really say to us. And that I have mentioned many times, and there was no better example than this specific segment on SmackDown that lasted longer than it probably should have. With Grayson Waller, Asuka is speaking in Japanese, and then Io Sky comes out, and Io Sky coming out doesn't exactly help the situation. In fact, it made it twice as bad, and they're yelling at each other in Japanese. And outside of hearing a couple of words here and there, the audience at home and in attendance are sitting there going, huh? I mean, this is actually the one place that I would allow and accept the what chant. This is where it should be used. I'm sorry, it should. Because, and I hate the what chant. I'm done with it. I don't participate in it. I don't claim the Albany residents who partook in the what chant on Monday night. But I think it should be used when appropriate and when the goal is to berate the people in the ring, or rather berate the segment, not necessarily the wrestlers in the ring. And tell WWE, what? And really, you're not understanding. Almost nobody in the arena is probably understanding what the hell they're saying. And occasionally we get that from time to time. If you have somebody that speaks, has a language that's their first language is not English. But here's the thing: you are speaking primarily to an English-speaking audience that knows no other language other than English, and that's just a fact. So, how does it help you to see two women yelling at each other, where if you don't have subtitles, you have no idea what they're saying? You could kind of imagine what they're saying and come up with words and phrases in your mind, but I shouldn't have to do that. And I shouldn't also have to sit through a product that doesn't communicate with me on the most basic level, that I have to actually imagine what they're saying to each other in my mind. And seeing these two yell at each other in Japanese, it's annoying, it's embarrassing for at least WWE, who, again, well, actually, I mean, a lot of people should be embarrassed by this. Not that Japanese is an inferior language. Okay, none of that. Just that if you're a business and you can't communicate with your audience, then shame on you. Seriously. I know some of you, it's not a big deal, but here, if you're Asuka or Io, to me, if I was looking at this from a long-term perspective, I'm playing the long game, I would spend as much time as I do training physically for the craft that I'm in of professional wrestling as I do learning the English language. Not fluently, like you hear me speak. They will always have an accent. But at least you could throw some sentences and phrases out there that the fans could go, oh my God, cool. She could actually speak in a language I understand. Yelling and screaming and being animated can only get you so far. And Asuka has brought herself pretty far by just being an animated cartoon that you have no idea what she's saying half the time. And she's had a great career. But imagine how much better it could have been if she could actually communicate and actually have the audience not sitting there going, huh? Wait, I'm sorry, what? I have no clue what you're saying. You know, your animations and your vocal tone and how loud you're being only deodorizes the problem so far before you're like, okay, I'm beyond the cartoonish stuff. Can you give me some substance? Like, what are you saying? And I don't know. I had a real problem with this because not because it's embarrassing for really even the wrestlers as it is really just for the WWE as a whole. And it also makes me sad because Asuka could achieve another level of success, and Io still could too. It's not that now that they can't learn it. It's just frustrating. That's all. It's frustrating. It just, that whole segment was not good. It was not good. Again, especially when you have a woman that can't speak English other than nobody is ready for Asuka. That's all she knows. And if she knows more, shame on her and creative for not allowing her to give us more. But I'm going to guess that she doesn't know more. I mean, and that you're shooting yourself in the foot. That's all there is to it. However, beyond Asuka and Io and Bayley, who made the segment enjoyable, or a little bit more enjoyable, palatable, I should say. It made it more palatable because I'm thinking to myself, okay, finally, if somebody just speaks plain English, I can hear what you're saying. Communication's key. Let's go, right? But Grayson Waller, can we get him in the ring? Or are we just going to do talk show after talk show after talk show with him and have him be kind of the Miz TV of SmackDown? This is another problem that also points to Vince McMahon for me, is this kind of stuff. This stuff where talk shows are a main staple of every show, and you have Grayson Waller, who am I mistaken by saying that Grayson Waller's logo and text that he uses for the Grayson Waller effect, is it not SpongeBob? It looks like Nickelodeon developed his logo. I'm serious. I'm not trying to be funny. It is funny, but it's also kind of true. Like, you tell me it doesn't. It looks like SpongeBob SquarePants, except it says the Grayson Waller effect. It's the same font. So, I mean, all he's missing is a pineapple, right? All right. I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of this segment until Bayley came out. I really, it highlighted the frustration I had with Asuka her entire career, knowing how good she is in the ring, knowing she could achieve another level if she just spent some of her time trying to learn English, where not as a fluency, right? Not as in like she's going to switch her primary language. Of course not. But being able to communicate with the millions of people at home, it's kind of a big deal. I know somebody out there is going to say, "Oh, that's you're saying English is superior." Yeah, actually, I am, in the context that it is going to be a superior language when you're trying to communicate to your audience at home. Okay? That's in that context, not as a general term. So I know some people out there, somebody out there is probably saying it, but whatever. I just want to clarify. Now, the other thing, as I get my frustrations out, that we learned during SmackDown had nothing to do with SmackDown other than it was being announced. Seth Rollins is already defending his World Heavyweight Championship. Oh, but it gets better. It's not like he's defending it again on a PLE. No. He's defending it a week after he won it on Raw, which I still am not going to accept that there's constant championship matches on free TV. I refuse to accept it. I know people have been beaten down by it, and it's just expected, and it's not special anymore. That's unfortunate because it devalues every championship that's in that boat. I really despise the fact that there are championships all the time on Raw and SmackDown. I don't mind if it happens every once in a while, but when it happens every once in a while, it makes it feel special, just like appearances that happen every once in a while feel special. It's this thing called absence makes the heart grow fonder. As human beings, we are familiar with this concept, and it applies to a lot of different things across our lives and in our lives. And it's a rule that is a general rule of thumb, and no matter what it applies to. And so my point is, Seth Rollins is defending it on Raw 1 week after he won it against, drum roll, I don't have one, but pretend there's one, Damian Priest. And look, I like Damian Priest. I'm glad he's finally getting some attention after being generally ignored, or rather, I think the better word is invisible, heading up to WrestleMania, because he's the only one who didn't have a match. And all of a sudden, he is in the title picture. How? He lost at Backlash in Puerto Rico to a guy that's not even in the business, a guy that is primarily in the music industry. He lost. How exactly is Damian Priest in a position to get a World Heavyweight Championship opportunity? Now, of course, the conversation isn't going beyond that, where somebody's wondering, oh my God, could Damian actually win it? There is a zero. When I say zero, I mean as zero gets, nothingness. There's a nothingness chance that Damian Priest wins. But that's not the conversation. The conversation is that he's even in the match with the championship. A championship that we were told is on equal footing, and we're supposed to believe is on equal footing with the Undisputed Championship of Roman Reigns. And yes, don't worry, I will get to the title, the look of the title that people are up in arms about. But they're treating this like it's the 24/7 championship. And sadly, it was even announced like that by Triple H. I mean, anytime, anywhere, it'll be a champion you can be proud of. It's kind of an oxymoron statement, is it not? If it's defended anytime, anywhere, that's not a champion I'm proud of. I mean, it's just not. I know people love this because, there's a championship on Raw, finally. Yeah, but if you want to make it feel like the 24/7 title, that's not a good goal. That's not what you should be aiming for with the World Heavyweight Championship, which is the same championship that has been around in wrestling for decades. And no, I'm not going to pretend that it's a new championship. It's not. So that feels very Vince McMahon-ish, does it not? There's more evidence of Vince McMahon. And again, I think it's a little unfair for me to say everything that I criticize is because of Vince. We will never know what is and what is not Vince. We will never know the full impact that Vince is or is not having on the product right now. But I think it's safe to say that Vince is having some. I think that's a fair assessment. It's kind of middle of the road. It's level-headed. It's the most likely. So that certainly seems to be the case here, that if Vince was in charge, he would be doing this, because prior to Triple H taking over last year, there were many championship matches on Raw and SmackDown. No championship was exempt. Every championship had the same treatment, which I just have a problem all the way across the board with it. But Damian Priest, back to Monday Night Raw, that's coming up this coming Monday night. It's embarrassing. I mean, not Seth being champion is not embarrassing. I have the utmost respect for Seth. He is a world-class athlete. He's already a Hall of Famer. Time will tell if he will become legendary status. We don't know that yet. Time, again, will tell us that. But Damian Priest, I'm sorry, he's not even in the conversation of Hall of Famer yet. If his career ended today, he would not be in the Hall of Fame. Now, could he be in the Hall of Fame because of the Judgment Day group? Perhaps. But as a singles career, no. He's not even in the conversation, where Seth is a lock him up, throw him out, throw out the key, Hall of Famer right now. I just have a real problem right now of them setting the tone that this championship is going to be treated like the 24/7 championship. And some of you don't care. And that's great. Don't let me rain on your parade. If you love constant championship matches and the fact that you see them all the time and anyone is eligible because apparently they are, then God bless you. But I think for the most of you that are listening to wrestling podcasts would tend to agree to this opinion. Tend to. Because we want championships to mean more, and especially the top one that's on that roster, the World Heavyweight Championship. It's a very bad tone to set when you have no build to this match, no rhyme or reason. Damian Priest has not exactly been on a hot streak. He loses to a musician in the last PLE. And we're supposed to believe that Seth Rollins and Damian Priest has earned a World Heavyweight Championship match? How? Somebody sit me down and tell me how. Did he just punk out Seth Rollins on Twitter? Are we really going to go the 15-year-old road? Are we really doing that? I have a huge problem with it because I want the championship to mean the most that it can. And that doesn't mean nobody ever gets a shot and he defends it every other month like Roman. Of course not. I want him to be there more often than not. That's the point of being the anti-Roman. But you need to be careful that you don't go too extreme. And right now they are doing right off the bat, the complete opposite of Roman, which is not going to benefit them long term if they want this belt to be on equal footing with Roman's. I mean, it's just not. Taking the complete opposite approach is not a good approach. Taking the normal approach that has worked for decades is the best approach. What's that? Defending your championship at pay-per-views, being there at least 3 out of 4 weeks on TV out of the month, and that's it. That's it. That's all we ask. So, I don't know. I'm not happy about this. I'm sure it'll be a fine match. That's not the problem. It's just the fact that it's being defended against a guy that doesn't deserve it in any shape or form. And we already know the outcome, so that's already shot. And you're devaluing the championship by immediately putting it on the line a week after Seth won it. Because we're supposed to just put that all the things I just said aside and only look at the fact we have a fighting champion, guys. Oh my God, what a stand-up guy. They're so blind they can't see the drawbacks. Or if they see them, they just go, wow, well, fans don't care that they're going to get to see a championship match. And I hope the fans see through it. I hope the fans see through the nonsense. It's all right. I've spent too much time on it. I think I've beat it to death. Those of you that are going to write me a 1-star review, I think I've given you enough material. So head on over to Apple Podcasts and talk about how I'm super negative and hit that 1-star review. Go for it, really. Anyway, let's move on to Roman's championship. I went online and I've had a hell of a weekend, guys. It is 11 o'clock Eastern time on a Sunday night. I just finished up SmackDown about 45 minutes ago. All right, so I'm super late to the party here, but throughout the weekend, I had a very busy one, but I was able to kind of catch glimpses of what the hell was going on SmackDown. I heard about the championship, the new championship belt, not the new championship, the physical belt that was going to be presented to Roman for his 1,000-day celebration. And I'm thinking, cool, they're going to unify the belts physically, because in concept they already have, but not in a physical sense. And I'm thinking, good, I'm tired of the 2 belts. There just feels like there's too many championships even though there are 2 top championships on Raw and SmackDown, 1 on each. When you see physical belts, even though conceptually there's only 2, you see 2 belts for 1 championship and now 3 belts for 1 championship. You're like, what? Are there 4 championships right now? It's just not a good look. However, guys, I'm going to turn this positive here. I saw a lot of the negativity. And when Triple H revealed the belt, I didn't hate it. Now, is it the Undisputed Championship of 2002? No, I really enjoyed that one, but it's not. I didn't expect it to be. But there was so much negativity around this belt. I looked at it and I go, that's all right. They didn't change much other than everything's just gold, 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 gold. Not a whole lot of, there's not a whole lot of color contrast. I don't hate it. And I'm actually not one to really critique physical belts so much because in a couple of weeks, we all forget and we just worry about what the championship means. The physical part of it fades away and you worry about the meaning. So I think those of you that are even very critical of this new physical belt, I think over time, and when I say that, in short order, a couple weeks, you're going to look at it and go, not my favorite, but who's his next opponent, right? You're going to move on very quickly because to focus on the physical championship, it's a superficial thing. It's about what does it mean? What does it represent? And what does it represent? It represents one of the greatest runs we've ever seen in our lifetimes. Now, to call Roman Reigns the greatest of all time, though, I've heard that thrown around even by the announcers. How can you call him the greatest of all time when he's number 5 on the list that you were telling us is proof that he's the greatest of all time? It's just like, well, wait a minute. If you're using that as the measuring stick, but then you tell me in the same sentence he's number 5 on that list, but yet he's the greatest, well, well, which is it? Because if he's the greatest of all time because of his 1,000-day run, well, what about the 4 people in front of him? What about Pedro Morales? What about Hulk Hogan? What about Bruno Sammartino? Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not, ranting on this. It's just funny to hear that. But back to the physical belt. I really have no issue with it. Am I in love with it? No, I don't love it. Do I despise it? No, I think it's okay. To me, the more important thing is they get rid of the other 2 championships, retire them for the time being. I personally like just the black strap with the WWE logo. I had no problem with that. This is just kind of a different color, same exact design. They really haven't changed the design since The Rock reintroduced the championship back in 2013 after the just despised spinner belt, which that was a I say physical belts don't matter. The spinner belt was that was an abomination. I'm sorry. I mean, it was a toy. It was an adult toy. I really, really hated the spinner belt. But because, you took something serious and John Cena had it customized so he could spin it around, and play with it after his matches. I don't know. But as far as this goes, guys, the most important thing to me is that they get rid of the other 2 belts. I don't need Paul Heyman carrying around those 2 belts. And then Roman putting the other one around his shoulder. What? No. The purpose of this championship is to show unification of the other 2. So what do you need the other 2 for? So I'm hoping that next week Roman is only carrying 1 belt. It's I know that the visual of Roman holding 3 championship belts is it's tempting, but it doesn't do anything because it all means the same thing. They aren't separate championships. We were told at WrestleMania 38, these were unified. WWE and Universal are no longer separate, even though the physical belts remained. They were in concept the same. So really, all 3 belts represent the same thing. Therefore, keep the gold belt, get rid of the other 2, and move on. All right. Well, let's continue on here, guys. Let's talk about LA Knight and Montez Ford. I am very excited about Montez Ford, or rather, LA Knight. LA Knight, you hear the reaction. He barely is even able to talk, and the crowd is chanting LA Knight. This dude is a star. And right now is the favorite to win the men's Money in the Bank. He fits the mold perfect. He's a heel, but the fans still love him, which I guess is an oxymoron, but he's at least WWE's version of a heel, even though the fans are absolutely just ready to explode for him. And he's young. Okay, he's not he's not 20. How old? I gotta check on LA Knight's age. Let me just Google that. How old is LA Knight? Oh God, he's actually 40. Okay. So he doesn't have it. Okay. Anyway, yeah, he's not 20. He's double that. But actually, that actually would make a case for him even stronger because at 40, he's not a spring chicken, but strike now, right? Strike while the iron's hot. Austin peaked in his late 30s. Why not? I think it's something that you could catch lightning in a bottle with. Have LA Knight, maybe carry a top championship for several months, 6 to 12 months, and and then see what happens. I mean, so yeah, being 40 years old, it's kind of strike while the iron's hot. He's more injury prone at that age. And, he doesn't have a ton of time in front of him to make an impact. So it's kind of now or never. I hope LA Knight does win. The match with Montez Ford, of course, I had no issue with. Montez Ford, also a believable candidate to win. He may actually still end up being in the Money in the Bank ladder match because they do, I believe every year they do like a second chance where everyone that lost their match gets put in a match and that person gets to be in the Money in the Bank ladder match. So it's possible we still see Montez Ford. It's very possible because the Street Profits, for all intents and purposes, they are just no. I mean, the reaction and the entrance is still there, kind of, but it's just they don't have anything interesting going on. It's time to break them up. I mean, I know that a lot of people in WWE probably would say, "What are you gonna do with Montez Ford? What are you gonna do with Angelo Dawkins?" There's more value in them being single stars than there is as a tag team if you're not going to do anything with them. So, all right. So yeah, I was excited that LA Knight did get the victory here. All right, let's move on here. We got at the beginning of the show, we did get a 6-man tag team match, and it was Elton Prince, Kit Wilson, and Austin Theory versus Sheamus, Butch, and Ridge Holland. Boy, this match it felt really long, even though it was just under 15 minutes. It felt really long. And not that it was a bad match. I was just kind of looking at the watch like, this is still going on. Good match. Ridge Holland had some standout moments, and having Theory get the victory here on Butch made sense. And I had no problem with it because Theory and Pretty Deadly, they need some momentum, way more than the Brawling Brutes do. Austin Theory has been kind of forgotten. He reminded us about the WrestleMania victory with John Cena. I think WWE is going with the theory, no pun intended, that the fans aren't going to remember how he won, just that he did win. I'm here to remind you, Theory won with a low blow on John Cena. That does not help him. Okay, we need to remember that. It's important how people win. All right, so anyway, I will continue to remind you of that. However, Pretty Deadly looked good. I think they're a solid heel tag team. Again, jury's still out for me on the long term, but a good opener. And having Austin Theory not get much of a reaction is a bit concerning. I mean, Austin Theory, I just talked about his victory over John Cena at Mania. You would imagine, though, he'd be hot for, being a heat magnet, and he's not. Austin Theory doesn't get the reaction that WWE probably should expect from him at this point. But to be fair, they haven't done with him really nearly anything since WrestleMania. So there is some repairing that needs to go on with Austin Theory's character. No doubt about that. We got, by the way, some really nice video packages throughout the show about Roman's 1,000-day reign. And I told you guys it was coming about 400 days ago, by the way. And actually, at some point, I'm going to have a conversation, maybe with Anthony DeMarco, maybe with somebody else, maybe about myself, about if Roman Reigns could indeed make it to the number one spot, beating out Bruno Sammartino, and getting to the number one spot of number one of all time. There's a case to be made for it. There is a case there. Is it going to happen? I don't know. But anyway, the really nice video packages throughout the whole show, though, talking about and showing all the people that he has passed in history. They even showed CM Punk. I saw that. Of course, Triple H, The Rock, Stone Cold, Kane, everybody that you'd imagine. And it was a really cool way to showcase his WrestleMania victories, all three of them, when he first won it back in August of 2020 during the pandemic. All that. It was just really nice to remind us, kind of just a massive milestone as expected, and just a reminder, man, that I think a refresher of like, wow, I remember that. Oh my God, that. Oh my God, this, right? And it just reminds you how far we've come. The fact that Roman has had it for 1,000 days in this era really is it's a modern day miracle from a booking standpoint, especially. All right, so let's move on. We got Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson versus Ashanti the Adonis and Top Dollar. I have to say, I'm very surprised that Hit Row made an appearance at all. I was concerned that they were going to the pink slip list, which they still could. You know, it's not good that they lost in under 4 minutes, but still, for them to be on the show at all was a bit surprising. But the match, I mean, I don't know what to say about it. It was okay. I mean, it was okay for a 4-minute match. Now, they didn't have Swerve. And Flop Dollar was there, of course, getting the phenomenal forearm from AJ. So that was fine. I don't anticipate this, though, to be a long-standing feud. I really don't. I don't think this is going to be something that is that lasts for a while with the Good Brothers and AJ versus Hit Row. It does not seem like it's something that's going to be, even up to this next pay-per-view. All right. We got Lacey Evans in the Money in the Bank briefcase matchup here. And boy, Zelina Vega and Lacey Evans in a qualifying match. I'll get to the other thing in a minute. That's even more evidence of Vince McMahon. But Lacey Evans and Zelina Vega, first of all, Lacey Evans is back, and she did kind of keep her same gimmick that she showed us many months ago in her in full makeup boot camp vignettes. So she's just in a drill sergeant hat and has her hair up in a bun, and she's saluting a lot. So I don't know if she spent a lot of time with Sergeant Slaughter or if she actually learned something at boot camp. I'm not sure. But there is something there with Lacey Evans. They've kind of kept generally the same character outside of the nasty where she was dressing up like she was in the 1940s. Outside of that, she's been kind of some variation of a military woman, like with a military background. That's always been a part of her character is, hey guys, don't forget she's been a part of the military, so you should cheer that, and at times she actually used it to get booze. And when she come out, and remember this many months ago, where she would come out and we wouldn't cheer her loud enough and she'd keep restarting her entrance and all that. There's been kind of weird iterations of Lacey Evans, and this one's not off the wall. It's still kind of in keeping with what she's generally been, with the military being the foundation. But I'm not sure what to make of this yet. Promos and character development have not happened with this yet. We've only seen the outward version of this. But having Lacey Evans lose to Zelina Vega, it makes sense from the perspective that Zelina Vega nearly won against Rhea Ripley at Backlash and got one of the biggest pops she ever got in her career. Probably will be the biggest. And we also had a returning Lacey Evans, so it was kind of like, well, something's got to give. I mean, you can't have Zelina lose to Lacey Evans because Zelina was, just propped up big time by the Puerto Rican crowd, and her status has elevated because of that. And she, not just the crowd though, to be fair, Zelina had probably her best match to date with Rhea. And then you also have returning Lacey Evans, who, you want to get her some momentum behind her. So what are you going to do? And they end up choosing to go with Zelina Vega in 3 minutes. And she hit code red, and that's it. So Zelina Vega is the first entrant in the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. All right. Oh, but leading up to this, though, I mean, it was, it was a little tough. All right, with all the women coming out, with Shotzi coming out. Okay, Zelina ended the whole segment. Actually, that was during the Asuka Grayson Waller. I'm getting these mixed up. That happened during the Asuka Grayson Waller effect segment, where all the women kept coming out one by one, single file. It's like they're lined up backstage, which is probably exactly what they were doing. But that was something that Vince was very fond of. Anytime there was a multi-woman match, you would have, or a multi-man match, sometimes, often, you would have one person after the other, single file, everybody come out and get their lines in. I mean, that's something that Vince also loved to do. And it's unfortunately a little more evidence that Vince has more pull than we'd like to admit. All right. So let's continue here. We have we have the next segment of Jimmy and Roman, and boy, this was good. This was really good. I mean, everybody continues to shine. Everybody continues to play their role well with the Usos and Jimmy and Jay, who they didn't think were going to be there, and Jimmy says, "No, we need to set you straight, and something's wrong with you." And the emotional roller coaster of the promo where Jimmy's getting the face of Roman. Roman looks like he's about to explode, and things are going to, finally completely implode. And then we have Solo, who people, lost their minds when he sided with the Usos, and we're going face to face with Roman, and the look on Paul Heyman's face, and then ultimately it ended with a Jay and Roman hug. And as Jay was saying, I just want this to be right. I want this to be you, stop basically abusing us and all that. And it ended with Roman just giving a look to Solo after Roman, with just a look in the eye, Solo spiked Jimmy, and that was it. Roman continues to have his henchmen do his dirty work, and Roman and Solo unite up the ramp as Jimmy is laid out where Jay is consoling him. And, they're always talking about what's Jay going to do? What's Jay going to do? Well, obviously he's going to side with his brother, and it's going to lead to a tag team match, probably at the Money in the Bank event, which, if that happens, would be, my God, how many pay-per-views in a row now where Roman doesn't defend his championship? If that happens, we will get confirmation, of course, in the coming weeks if that's going to happen. But this would be the longest that Roman has gone since he became champion back in August of 2020, in which he has not defended his championship. So, if that happens, because he would go from WrestleMania to SummerSlam until he defends it, which it would be just absolutely insane. But overall, guys, I'm really enjoying this event, or this program, because still continue to. Because things are cracking and falling apart, but who's on whose side? Is somebody going to do a double turn? That kind of thing. And it's just so much fun to watch. And finally, I need Jay to come around. Jay has been the one that has been so conflicted. It's weird that Jimmy's the one stepping up, but ultimately, Jay's going to side with Jimmy. It wouldn't make sense to have Jay on his own 3-on-1. It makes no sense. And the Usos are too good of a team, too much of a money draw. Probably the greatest tag team of all time. And I really agree. I agree with that assessment on the announcer's part. They are probably the greatest tag team of all time. And to have them break up, to have Jimmy, there's no story to tell there. So Usos will remain a team. It's just a matter of when and how Jay snaps, and what next week's SmackDown looks like. Does Jimmy try to attack Roman? What happens there? So a lot of unanswered questions, and just a quick recap of Raw, if you want me to do that quickly. And the answer is yes, you do. We got Ricochet versus The Miz in a Money in the Bank qualifying match. Ricochet beat The Miz in about 9 minutes. We got, the Indus Sheer versus Javier Bernal and a partner. I didn't catch his name. I keep forgetting. The Indus Sheer, doesn't matter because they won in about a minute. We got Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens coming out. They're very much in comedy mode that night. Not my favorite, but they're trying to lighten the mood. But it was Ludwig Kaiser and Giovanni Vinci versus Alpha Academy, Chad Gable and Otis with Maxine Dupree. Baldy seems to be Giovanni's new nickname, so we'll see if that maintains momentum coming up Monday night. And it ended with Ludwig and Giovanni Vinci beating Alpha Academy in 5 minutes. We got the women's tag team title match, the Fatal 4-Way for the vacant women's tag team title match, tag team titles. And the heavy favorites did win here, but to me, this was the only choice. And it was Ronda and Shayna Baszler winning in about 12 minutes. And they should have won, and they did. And Ronda doubled down on a promo just to remind us that she's still a heel, and I like that. We got JD McDonough versus Dolph Ziggler, the resident enhancement talent that can go anywhere. JD McDonough beat Ziggler, and they got into a double countout in about a minute. Let's see. Cody Rhodes just basically said a whole bunch of nothing, but had an open challenge to Brock. So Cody Rhodes continues to eloquently say nothing, which is kind of been his thing for a while. And Bronson Reed versus Shinsuke. Shinsuke Nakamura beat Bronson Reed in about 9 minutes, which was surprising in the, again, Money in the Bank qualifier. We then got Seth Rollins and AJ Styles versus Damian Priest and Finn Balor. So, hey, Seth Rollins and AJ Styles win. It's Seth's first night as champion. And he gets a victory with AJ against Damian and Finn. Again, Damian losing to a team that has the guy that you're going to have a championship match with, which again makes no sense that AJ and Seth Rollins beat Priest and Balor. And yet Priest is again being rewarded with the top championship on Raw and opportunity at it. Just, guys, this makes no sense. Anyway, so overall, a solid Raw, nothing crazy, but a Raw that continued to push things forward towards Money in the Bank. I would imagine we have more qualifiers this week. That'll lead us into the event in a few weeks. But we also got, what did Baron Corbin do? Isn't Baron Corbin on NXT now? Who the hell did he attack, guys? Somebody out there is screaming it. Baron Corbin attacked somebody, and I can't remember. I'm going to look it up, because if I don't, somebody out there is going to send in a voicemail. So where did Baron Corbin? He attacked. Was it the champion on? Yeah, it was Cameron Grimes. That's what it was. So, but hey, I know Corbin has been on the main roster for a long time, but sometimes going back to NXT, look what it did for Finn Balor. Remember how Finn was on the main roster? He didn't know what to do with him. He goes back to NXT, revives himself, revives his career, comes back to the main roster, and here we are with Finn. I think Corbin could benefit greatly from being in NXT as well. So you got to remember, it's not just a one-lane road here. I mean, it's a two-way street sometimes. Sometimes we forget that. We always think that everything from NXT comes up to the main roster, but sometimes the main roster can give back. And it's not the leftovers. It's somebody that you know has value and could help boost NXT and maybe also boost himself in the process when he comes back. So it's a win-win here. I don't dislike Corbin on NXT at all. He's the free agent. I think that Adam Pearce said he'll be on SmackDown next week, but I wouldn't mind regular appearances from Corbin on NXT if he's feuding with Cameron Grimes. I have no problem with that. So, all right. Well, I think that concludes my week in review, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. My voice is about to give out here, guys. I got as I said, a bit of a cold, but I'm pushing through. I'm pushing through bravely. But all right. Well, that concludes it for me, guys. But please consider going ad free at WWEpodcast.com. You go VIP, or you can go to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. There's a free trial right now, 7-day free trial for our SmackDown tier and our NXT tier. And you can check that out. But also, you can go ad free right on Apple Podcasts. There's an Apple Podcast subscription. So, all right, everybody. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for listening. As always, take care, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.